Welcome to lesson 10.3. We're going to be talking about the surface area of pyramids. I just want to say I'm really proud of you guys who are putting the extra time in and really trying to understand these concepts. I know they can be super difficult, so I appreciate you listening and attempting to learn the best that you can. I want to talk to you about some important information. Make sure that you have printed out the 10.3 notes and that you're filling in the notes as I go through this lesson today. As we talk today about pyramids, I want you to know pyramids have a lot of different kinds of bases. You can see on this right here, the base is a square. Okay, so we talked too last week a little bit about prisms and cylinders. Just like with a prism and a cylinder, we've got to find the base first. Back here you can see this has two bases. Remember we talked about the top and the bottom. Those are both bases. This base was always a circle for a cylinder, okay? So the good news for a pyramid is there is only going to be one base total. So as we talk about this today, a regular pyramid has a base that is a regular polygon. Basically what that means with me using this word regular is all of the sides and the angles are going to be equal. Now something important to know about a lateral face on a pyramid. Every single time the lateral face is going to be a triangle. So let me help you to try to understand this just a little bit better. This thing right here is called a net. Okay, so you can clearly see that the base right here is down there at the bottom. Once again, there's only one base. And then the lateral faces, or the sides of this pyramid, fold up to form a peak. So if I was to fold up all of these sides right here, you would see it's going to end up forming a peak, and that's what makes it a pyramid. The next thing that we're going to want to take note of is this part right here where it says the height of each triangle is called the slant height. Now it's called a slant height because the faces, or the sides, are slanting in to form the peak. However, the height, as you can see right here, is always going to be going straight up and down, and every single time it's going to be forming a right angle, which you can clearly tell from our right angle symbol. Something that I always love to have is a formula because it helps you just to be able to find the answers a little bit better. Unfortunately, the formula for a pyramid is kind of weird. You can see it here. It says the surface area is the area of the base. Remember, there's only going to be one base, plus the area of the lateral faces. So really you're thinking you've got to find this area, and then you're going to find the area of these different sides, or the lateral faces. Now the interesting part is this part right down here. The area of the lateral faces is going to be the number of lateral faces. Here you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 lateral faces, or 4 sides, and then you're going to always multiply it times half times base times height. If you remember this part of the formula, half times base times height, that is the area of a triangle formula, which makes perfect sense. So in this case, you can see that there were 4 lateral faces. So we would do 4 times half times base times height in order to find this part of our formula. And then we would also add in whatever the area of the base, in this case, a square. You would add that together to find the total surface area of the pyramid. I am quite sure at this point that you're probably feeling a little bit confused. Sometimes it helps us just to kind of dive into the problems and see if we can start to visualize and understand some of those words that I said at the very beginning on that first slide. Number 1 is asking us to find the surface area of the regular pyramid. So you can see here I have problem A and I have problem B. Just to avoid confusion, I'm going to take away problem B for right now so that you cannot see it. Problem B has absolutely nothing to do with problem A. So in your notes, don't think that that picture has anything to do with problem A, because it does not. Okay, so this is asking us on problem A, what is the surface area of a square pyramid with a base side length of 9 centimeters and a slant height of 7 centimeters? So the first thing you've got to do is figure out what kind of a base we have. Now remember, pyramids can have lots of different kinds of bases. It could be a square base, a rectangular base. You could even go into triangular bases, or hexagonal. I mean, it could go on and on forever. So you have to first determine what kind of a base do I have. Well, for this one, I don't have any pictures, so I've got to look at the words and figure out what kind of a pyramid this is going to be. I want you to take your red pens and underline this or write a squiggly line about the instructions here. It tells us very clearly it is a square pyramid. Okay, so we're going to use that as we go in and try to work this problem out. Just like always, the first thing that I want you to do is start off with your formula. So we know we're looking for the surface area, and in order to find it for a pyramid, we're going to take the area of the base Okay, so I've written out the formula. It's the surface area equals area of the base plus area of the lateral faces. Once again, let's try to figure out the area of the base. What kind of a shape is our base? Well, you go back to your instructions where it says find the surface area of a square pyramid. So we know that we're going to be using the area of the base, which is a square, and in order to find the area of a square, you simply know you have to be finding s squared. Plus, we're going to do the area of the lateral faces. Now think about a square. A square has how many sides? There's 4 sides. So if you remember what I talked about on that previous slide is you've got to add all the sides and multiply it, because it's a pyramid, half times base times height. Now what we got to do is just go ahead and start plugging some numbers in. So if we're looking at this right here, it says, what's the surface area of a square pyramid with a base side length of 9 centimeters? So the base down there at the bottom is going to be 9 centimeters. So we know we're going to be doing 9 squared. Plus 4 times half times base times height. Half times the base, which tells us it's 9, and the height, which tells us it's 7. So this kind of a problem is actually pretty simple because it totally tells us exactly what the base and exactly what the height is, so we don't mess anything up. So now we're going to do the surface area equals 9 squared. Be really careful. I've seen recently on a lot of work that people are still saying this is 9 times 2. It is 9 times 9 because you got to multiply it by itself. So 81 plus 4 times, we're going to do half times 9 times 7. When you multiply all that together, you should be getting 31.5. Now we're going to go ahead and work out this last step. 81, make sure you're not doing this right here. Some people try to do 81 plus 4. You can't do that because remember, before being able to do anything else, we've got to multiply before I can add. So let's go ahead and multiply those two things together right there. 4 times 31.5 is 26. Oops. Now you're going to go ahead and add those two together. 81 plus 20. Sorry, this should be 126. Sorry about that. So 81 plus 126 is 207 centimeters. And then because, once again, we are finding the surface area, you want to make sure that you square your units. Now you can see we're going to move on to problem B. There's no instructions aside from just a picture, but we're still trying to find the surface area of the regular pyramid. So let's go ahead and write down, once again, always start with the formula. The surface area equals the area of the base plus the area of the lateral faces. Let's write that down to start with. So the first thing you have to do is figure out what the base is. Because this only tells me it's 5 inches right here, we can go ahead and assume that each and every one of the sides are also going to be 5 inches. So going all the way around this, each of those are 5. So if all of them have the same exact length, then we know that that's going to be a square. So starting off once again, we are going to go ahead and know the area of the base, the area of a square, is s squared. Plus, we're going to do the area of the lateral faces. Once again, because we know that it is a square, there are going to be 4 lateral faces because we've got all those 4 sides going up. And then every time on a pyramid, the face is going to be a triangle. So we're going to also multiply that times half times base times height. So let's start plugging some numbers in. S squared, we're going to go ahead and do 5 squared plus 4 times half times the base. We know the base down here is going to be 5. And then you can see the slant height going up is 8 inches. Next up, 5 squared, 25. Plus, remember once again, you want to go ahead and figure out what goes inside here, and then you'll multiply that 4 inside. So we've got half times 5 times 8. 5 times 8 we know is 40. Half of 40 is going to be 20. Now we can go on. Surface area equals 25 plus 4 times 20 is going to be 80. And when you add those two together, you find out that your surface area is 105 inches squared. So the main thing is, when you look at your homework, look carefully to see what it tells you the base is. Sometimes it might tell you with words, other times it might just tell you in a picture. So look carefully when trying to figure out about a pyramid what the base is. Alright, so the instructions on this one are a little bit different. It asked us to find the surface area of a triangular pyramid. This, I want you to take your red pen and go ahead and draw a cloud around that word. This helps us to understand the base is no longer a square. It is going to be a triangle. And you can see this just by looking at this down here. The base, the thing that's down there at the bottom, looks like a triangle. So we're still going to be using the same formula that we had beforehand, but our base is going to be different. So let's go ahead and start off with what the formula is. Remember, the formula is going to be just like we did before, finding the area of the base plus the area of the lateral faces. Now, I'm sorry in advance that the triangular pyramid is slightly more tricky than the other one we just talked about. So let's talk about this first, okay? We're trying to focus right now only on the base. So that's that bottom triangle down there. So as we start off, we're trying to find the area of the base, which is going to be, once again, half times base times height, because it is a triangle, plus the area of the lateral faces. Remember, if we know this down here is a triangle, how many sides are on a triangle? There are 3 sides, so 3 times, and in your notes it said every single time we will always multiply it times half times base times height, because this is a triangular pyramid. Alright, now you got to be careful. When you're looking at this base and height, it can be different than this base and height. So let's look and examine this very carefully. Alright, first up we are focusing on the base. That's the bottom of this pyramid. So we're going to take half times the base. You can see this down here is my base for this. Okay, so the base is 10 times the height. Once again, I am focusing on the height of the base, this down here. What is the height of the base? You can see I have 8.7 is the height of the base because it's pointing down here to the base that we have at the bottom of our pyramid. So then I'm going to multiply that times 8.7. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put this in parentheses, adding in now times 3. Remember, I have 3 lateral faces. The lateral faces are those sides that look like a net at first, and you pull them all together and it comes up here to join and fill or meet this peak up here. Alright, so now I'm going to be multiplying times half times base. The good news is the base is the same, so it's still going to be times 10, but the difference is here, now I want the slant height. Remember, this is these things that are coming up right here on the sides. So the slant height is going to be 14 meters for this part. Okay, so that's the hardest part, is realizing your heights are going to be different between the base and then the lateral surface area. Now let's go ahead and just plug these things in. I'm going to take half of 10 times 8.7. 10 times 8.7 is going to be 87 plus 3. And I once again want to go ahead and take half times 10 times 14. So it's half of 140, which is going to be 70. Now all we got to do, remember, you want to go ahead and break it down, multiply these together before adding them. That's our PEMDAS rule. So half of 87, I'm going to get 43.5. plus 3 times 70 is going to be 210. When you add those two together, you figure out that the surface area of this triangular pyramid is 253.5 meters squared. Once again, you square it because we are finding the area. All right, so I've got one more problem for today, problem B. I want you to pause the video and try to do it on your own. All right, so remember, we're going to go ahead and start off with the formula. The surface area is the area of the base. Our base here, once again, our instructions tell us it's a triangular pyramid, so we're going to go ahead and take half times base times height. That is the part that is going to be the area of the base. Plus, we got to do the area of the lateral faces. Okay, so remember, because down here, this is a triangle, there are 1, 2, 3 sides. So we're going to go ahead and do plus 3 times half times base times height. Okay, so now that you're all set up, once again, pause the video, try to plug it in, and do it on your own. All right, hopefully you got time to be able to go ahead and try this on your own. Starting at the base, always start with the base first. Half times, you can see the base down here is 6 feet. Okay, so we're going to be multiplying 6 times, and then the height, you can see, is pointing toward the bottom base down here, so 5.2. Plus 3 times half times the base. Once again, we've still got a 6-foot base, and then the height, remember, is going to be the slant height going up for all the lateral faces, which is 10 feet. If you didn't get that, go ahead and erase it and fix it. We're going to do half times, this is going to be 31.2 plus 3 times, half times 6 times 10, that's half of 60, which is going to be 30. Now all you got to do, if you remember how we talked about it before, always multiply these together before you add them together. We're going to know the surface area now. Half of 31.2 is 15.6 plus 3 times 30 is 90. Add those up together and you get that the surface area of this triangular pyramid is 105.6 feet squared. All right, I know that was a lot to take in, so tonight's homework is going to be 10.3, and it will be found in the Big Ideas portal. Do your best. Please remember you can check your answers, and you can use that help button to help you try to understand if you get the problems correct or not.